Dream Theater fans, and welcome to episode number 5 of the Let's Learn Falling into Infinity Guitar and Analysis series. Today, we will be exploring a phenomenon regarding the immaterial part of our existence, also known as the soul. Throughout the course of this song, we have lyrics that detail some kind of burning sensation. And no, not the kind of burning sensation that Al Capone experienced at the red light district. This is more of an intangible irritation, a metaphysical burn that no amount of ointment could possibly quell. A thorn in my side, a chip on my shoulder, a lump in my throat the size of a boulder. These are all things that are sure to cause extreme irritation to the soul. But you know what else causes extreme irritation to the soul? Learning a Dream Theater song through every single note, every single time change, every single chord progression, and a full, detailed musical analysis of Burning My Soul by Dream Theater. Let's get it. Burning My Soul is a simpler tune that airs on the shorter side when it comes to Dream Theater's music. With a timestamp of 5 minutes and 29 seconds, it has a very simple layout. Verse, chorus, bridge, verse, chorus. Doesn't get any simpler than that. It's almost like learning a Blink-182 song. But of course we know that's not the case because of course Dream Theater does something a little bit more when it comes to simplicity. They complexify simplicity any chance that they get. Now there's also a very heavy riff that glues these parts together, so that's another element to keep in mind. Now although this track embraces simplicity within its riffage, there are a few elements that add to the complexity of this song. We get some odd time signatures during the bridge section. That was an odd time signature, by the way. Number 2, we get some very heavily layered instrumentation throughout the track that comes in and comes out. Sometimes it's totally bare bones, the essentials, maybe guitar, bass, and drums. And other times, Derek Sherinian comes in and fills in the whole palette with all of his silly keyboards. Sometimes even sounding like a guitar in the process. And just like with any Dream Theater song, we have some exotic scales and chord progressions to keep us from getting bored. Just like the members of Dream Theater seem to get when they're holding their instruments. Very, very, very bored. So with that said, let's get into this intro sequence, which begins with a synth swell from Derek Sherinian and also a bell swell from Derek Sherinian. This sets up the vibe and the overall key center for the remainder of the song, which will be E minor. After a few seconds of wind noises, we hear the talk box and or vocoder come in. I can't think of a more proper way to introduce a song than this, as we are literally saying the song title right at the beginning of the song. It also establishes that some kind of flat 7 is going to be used in the composition's future. After that synth and talkbox effect, we get the first taste of the main riff of the song being played by John Myung on the bass. A semi-disjointed but bluesy sounding line. This is also accompanied by Derek Sherinian on yet another airy sounding synth patch. And this configuration continues for just 2 bars. In addition to that, another heavier organ sound comes in to triple that idea. Once again, here's the bass and the airy synth. Which is now joined in by this aggressive organ patch. Just pure unbridled rock and roll. So far we have 6 different elements making up the first 4 bars of this track, and we have yet more to come on top of that. These notes that are being played are melodically important and they're harmonically important as well because they're going to detail what the heavy guitar is going to play right after this, just like the bass did and just like the organ did in that airy synth pad. So we basically have everything underneath the note E. That's the pedal. And this creates a lot of tension, especially when you start using more dissonant intervals on the top. We have the root up right here, the flatted 7, and then the root again. Alright, so nice and bluesy. And then we immediately go to a tritone. Wow, okay, so there's some tension right there. Flat 5, then the E on the bottom to reinforce the root, and then going right to that nice B. That's the 5th. So we're going root, flat 7, tritone, 5th. So kind of an exotic way of playing a blues scale, but we're playing it all as a chord. Okay, so, and that's not it. Right after that, we have to hit the open G. Alright, so that open G is the flatted 3rd, further solidifying that we are in E minor. And then we come back to the root, and then we have to hit this, is A, that's the 4th. Alright, so in this melody we have the 4th, flatted 5th, and the 5th, all within our key center, which is the blues, by the way. And then the final move is this, root and F, that is a flatted 2. Listen to all that dissonance on the flat 2. Oh wow. That's a flatted 9th as well, alright? It's a flatted 2 or minor 2nd up the octave. And it creates a very Phrygian sound. That's what the flat 2 is all about. It's a minor scale with a flatted 2. Now let's hear all that again. Ready? Root, flat 7, root, flat 5, 5, open G flat 3rd, the 4th, root, flat 9, and then going right back into the low. And it resolves on the low as well. And I do want to point out that on the B string here, the paired strings are basically the same size. Alright, so you're getting the same notes. But on the G and everything below it, it's paired with a higher octave string. So you get a pretty cool effect when you move from the G string to the B string, just like this. Watch, listen. We got the both octaves, and then we have just one octave, which is kind of cool. I like that. So this B flat here is actually higher than the one that we're playing here. Alright, so you're kind of getting an octave effect, as if you're climbing down a mountain after a long journey, a very dissonant journey up to the devil. Okay, so you're trying to go up to the devil, but you wind up going down to the devil anyway, because that's just the nature of that interval. Alright, anyway, moving on. That quadra-layered riff goes on for another 8 bars before being joined in by the ultimate force of nature, John Petrucci's heavy, heavy, heavy guitar riff that comes on top. So if it's not obvious by now, this 5th layer really adds even more importance to this riff. So let's get into it even further. So the heavy guitar uses the same repetitive 2-bar phrase that the other instruments were playing, this time using a perfect 4th interval, outlining the root note and the 5th, which is basically an inverted power chord, or a low, chunky Judas Priest on a motorcycle. We knew Rob Halford really likes motorcycles. Heavy, chunky riff. So here we go. So we're going to go with 2 open 2 like this. Okay, with a free note at the beginning and 2 mutes. Alright, so free, mute, mute. And then free. Alright, so free, mute, mute, free, mute, mute, free. And that's going to be the pattern all the way through. Alright, just listen to that articulation. Oh yeah, heavier than anything you ever lifted before. We got pianos on our backs. We have, big silverback gorillas on our backs. We have massive, massive metallic objects of unknown origin on our backs. The heaviest things we've ever lifted before. Now, check this out. We're going to come on to E and then D5. Back up, okay? So we basically have to do the root, flat 7, and the root. And then back up here, this 8-8, that's the tritone. That's the B flat. That's just like what we saw with the 12 string. Then we do the same deal. That's the flatted 3rd. Also also creating an E minor 7, by the way. You have the flat 7th and the flat 3rd on top of the root note. And then once again, here we go to the 4th, and then flatted 2nd. Okay, so all in all, root, flat 7, tritone, flat 3rd, 4th, flat 2. And all of those notes line up with what the 12 string was playing underneath and what all the other instruments are playing as well. So this is the pattern that is defined throughout the entire song. The final increase of dynamics comes in the form of Mike Portnoy's drum grooves. And this basically takes this intro into its final stages of evolution. Here's groove number 1 with the riff. It's basically just a bass drum heartbeat with a crash or china cymbal on the upbeats to give it some pop. This goes on for 4 bars before hitting into groove number 2. The double bass enters with a consistent 16th note pulse, accompanied by the snare on beats 2 and 4. A standard rock beat, but with double bass. This then comes into the final form of the introduction. The double bass continues on as the snare is slightly altered by adding in an extra hit on the final 16th note of beats 2 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, So all in all, we have 24 bars of music with 8 different elements to keep that introduction fresh. Not to mention we have extra layers being added as we progress to keep it frankly more interesting. Let's do a quick overview of everything that happened so far. We began with 2 bars of free time with the synthesizer and the bell. Don't forget about the talk box either. We then add the bass and airy organ for 2 bars. Then we add the heavy organ for 2 bars. Add 12 string and bass drum for 8 bars. Add the heavy guitar riff for 4 bars with an offbeat crash and china. Then add the double bass groove for 4 bars. Then add the offbeat snare drum for 4 bars to complete the evolution into the verse. Now after that whole evolution is complete, we come into the first verse, which has a riff that sounds an awful lot like White Zombie. Let's check it out. First half of verse 1 uses a palm-muted rhythm with a little bit of a twist that really does add some interest to the whole thing. Here's the main rhythm that we'll be repeating. Here we go, ready? And that basically goes 8 times through. Now, that rhythm anyway, it's basically 4 bars. It's a very slow quarter note in this, alright, as to let the 16th note syncopation really take control. Alright, so it's basically a 1EN 2E, a 3EN 4E, a 1EN 2E, a 3EN 4E, Alright, so that 2E is very syncopated, it's chopped up. You chop out the middle note, you actually chop out the 8th note in there. Okay, so the middle of the beat. And the same thing with beat 4 as well. So we have to make sure we understand that. 1EN 2E, a 3EN 4E, a 1EN 2E, a 3EN 4E. Okay? And anytime you're on an upbeat, in this case a 16th note is going to be the upbeat. If you're on an 8th note, that's now considered basically a downbeat when you're going with strict alternate picking, okay? So don't let that confuse you throughout the entire scheme of this. And of course, it does sound like White Zombie, right? You just add that in there, and you basically have Thunderkiss 69, okay? So don't even worry about that. Or is it 65? I think it might be 65. Does it really matter? Probably does. But imagine it were called Thunderkiss 69 instead. 69! yeah! 69, yeah! Imagine it were Thunderkiss 649. 649, yeah! Or how about 700,682? 700,982. So you can't even say it if it's not another number besides in the 60s, right? I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. We gotta get back in the song. Stop distracting me. Now the very next time through the riff might ordinarily be called the repeat. But here, it's not quite a repeat because it does something completely different right on the first bar of the next half. And here it is slow. Ready? And that's it. That's the only difference. Except that very ending as well. We hit a couple other chords. But that first part happens on the very first measure of the next cycle. Alright? So it's kind of almost off-putting. It kind of jilts us into thinking that it shouldn't happen, but it feels perfect right where it is. Usually you don't do something so heavy-handed right on that downbeat, right? Usually you wait for the end of the measure to do something like that, but this is almost like a Lars Ulrich type of approach, or Lars Ulrich, however you pronounce his name, by doing a fill, starting on the first beat of the bar, and then hitting the crash cymbal halfway through that measure. So that's kind of cool. We're doing a very similar thing here, all right? And we're basically going 1, 2, all the way up these harmonics. They're natural harmonics. You basically just want to hit maybe like 2 each as you're moving up, but it's just a gradual effect. That's all. You want the harmonic note to come down in pitch as you start high and go low, but you want the fret numbers to increase. So you're sort of creating this Pythagorean nonsense chamber of insane resonance and amplitude. So here we go. Okay. Now listen for the change. Here it is. B flat, G flat. And you basically just play the same exact rhythm. Now those two chords don't really have much to do with the key center. But they just sound good within the whole process. When you go to that B flat, it reinforces the blues. And then when you go to the F sharp, it just sounds familiar because that's the natural 2 of the regular E minor scale. So even though we've been hitting an F the entire time, this F sharp is not too far out of the ordinary because, well, first of all, we haven't hit the F in a little while. So this F sharp is kind of a welcome change. And yeah, it just works well with the key of E minor because it's the 2, and it can easily resolve down to 1, no problem. We've heard plenty of Metallica songs that do that. The world of heavy metal loves the natural 2 to the open, especially the old school metalheads. The second half of verse 1 sees the dynamic increase with basically the entire band, and the guitar part also becomes a little more loose, and I'll show you what I mean. Loosey-goosey, watsy-toosey. Here we go. Notice how it's the exact same idea from before, but we're basically just doing a single note palm mute and then freeing up the notes as we move with the rhythm. So mute, unmute, and then the second time you unmute it, you also do an increasing natural harmonic progression on the 3rd fret. Ready? Or maybe better yet, I think that's a better one. That's more accurate than. Yeah, you want to get that right. You don't want too much of a difference between those. Now, I know on this album, Falling Into Infinity, there's been a ton of these natural harmonic things. I'm not sure exactly what John Petruccio was smoking during this time, but whatever it was, it really made him enjoy these natural harmonics going up and down, okay? Something we haven't seen on the previous album so much, all right? The harmonics were a little more shreddy. They were more 1980s style harmonics. This time we're going 1990s big time. And as we know, this is I would call it a quintessential 90s album, at least in terms of Dream Theater. The second half of this riff hits another chord progression that uses the same rhythm and then ends with this incredibly manic riff that reminds me of Metropolis Part 1 for the first time on this entire album. And of course we have to start with more natural harmonics, but this time it's like the first time we did it. But then right into D to C to B flat to G flat, and then we'll get to that next part. I know you're just itching to get to that manic depressive part, or more just manic, completely insane. But we're gonna get there, okay? So this first harmonic sequence starts on the first two beats, alright? So we're going, and then right into D with the same rhythm. Now, the cool thing about this is that it almost feels like we're playing the E for too short of an amount of time. When I was listening to the isolated tracks, I was having a hard time figuring out where the guitar actually was supposed to be in relation to the words, without the words being there. And because of this, it almost sounds like there's a measure of 2/4 in there instead, but it's just because the E chugs are on the third beat. So, because of that, we only have 2 beats to play it, and then we have to move on to the next chord, which, by the way, is D. That's the flat 7 to the C, which is the flat 6, to then B flat, the flat 5 right to G flat, alright, which is the natural 2 as we know. So we have a whole tone progression basically going here from E, D, C, B flat, and then 2 whole steps all the way down to G flat. So I don't know what's going on with the whole tone idea. I'm getting a little bit scared. And what's even scarier is the part that comes up right now. Starting on that B flat, that's our beat 1. Alright, so that's the start of the measure. 1, 2, 3. That's already 3 beats. Now this next manic part that goes like this, that only takes up 1 beat. Alright, that's literally a 16th note triplet going up a B flat tritone. I'll play it again. And you want to make sure you get it that fast. Alright, and super rhythmic as well, because there's a lot of stuff going on during this point in time, and you really have to make sure it's clean. And you want to get those mutes so that the unmuted notes pop out quite a bit. But you see how it kind of sounds like Metropolis? Except it's just in one spot. And for 1 beat, which is kind of silly, but almost kind of proggy as well. This is almost one of the proggiest moments I think I can think of. You have all these simple riffs going the entire time, and all of a sudden you hit them with this. And right into a simplistic part as well. I don't want to spoil too much, but that's literally how it is. So you want to make sure you're alternate picking this, by the way. And you want to go down, up, up. And on that upstroke, you want to do a free E, alright? You don't want a free B, you want a free E, okay? Which is basically going to be followed by this, watch. A mute, okay? So that's not a free E, that is an encaged and imprisoned E. Now we have a free B. On the B flat coming in on the tritone, so just big tritones. And guess what? That's not that weird, because we've seen the B flat already. The B flat links the 2 worlds together. The E minor with the blues world, but we're really embracing this dirty, nasty, satanic sound. Check it out. Okay? And really slow. Even slower. Even slower. Even slower. It's amazing they didn't turn this into a loop. That would have been pretty cool. But really fast now. Even faster. Even faster. 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 Alright, no, not faster. I can't go any faster. My head's about to explode. And guess what? I have a splitting headache. We need to stop playing this right now. As if that's not crazy enough, this guitar is doubled by the 12-string acoustic guitar. It only doubles that 16th note triplet run throughout this entire part. Just that 1 beat is doubled by the 12-string guitar, adding a nice chimey element to it, alright? So some timbres that aren't usually heard with the high gain guitar. Because the high gain guitar is so compressed, that nice chimey 12-string timbre really helps it to poke out of the mix. And you have to admit, when you're listening to it, it pokes out of the mix. Much like something else, but I'm not going to go and talk about that now, am I? There's also another synth that enters during the second half of this verse as well. Let's hear the first part. The notes outline what is known as a Lydian dominant scale, which mimics what James Labrie's vocals are doing as well.
A knot in my gut, an ape on my back. In the heat of the moment, I'm knocked off the track.
The Lydian dominant scale is just simply made up of an E major with a sharp 4 and a flatted 7th. Let's go through that. F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp, D, E, D, C sharp, B, A sharp. That's a very important note. That's the Lydian aspect of the dominant, and then we have G sharp, F sharp, down to E. So a very colorful scale that is being used here. Probably the trickiest part of this chorus section is coming into something so simple, just octaves and a 16th note rhythm, right after that manic part. So you're basically hitting that B flat like this, and going right into a simple little octave thing, just like this. Let's slow it down a little bit. G, A, C, and palm mute the lick. Alright, so all of this is within the confines of E minor. We're starting with this. Basically an E octave on the 7th fret of the A and the 9th, and the open B and E string. Okay, so we have an octave E, followed by the 5th B and another E. Okay, so that's a double E down here. Now that's basically a wider version of an E5 power chord, so we'll call that the 1 chord. And then we go to this G, alright, that's the flatted 3rd, but still with the B and E on top. So that creates basically what could be called an inverted E minor, because you have G on the bottom, and then B and E. The G would be the flat 3rd, the B would be the 5, and the E would be the root. Alright, so it could be an inverted E minor, or you could also call it G6, just like a G6. The next chord, pretty easy, it's A with an E on top. So that's an A5. You want to mute the B string on that one, by the way, because we don't want an A sus2, we just want an A power chord strewn across the land. And then we have this last one, which is basically a C, octave C, paired with an E. Alright, so that's just a major 3rd interval, which does indeed represent the flatted 6th chord. Okay, so once again we have E5, full measure, G6, A5, and then C, and then of course we have to end it with this cool lick. So that's basically just an E minor pentatonic scale, going up 2 notes, or going up 1 note, then coming down 2, and consistently doing that until you reach the bottom. Starting on B, going 5th to flat 7th, and then 4th to 5th. That's the flatted 3rd to the 4th, and then flat 7 to root. Okay, or 9, 12, 7, 9, 5, 7, 5, 7. Alright? All alternate picked, all muted, and all tightened, like a taiga in the middle of the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers, in which we'll never see because, well, we're not learning the song yet. We gotta learn this whole song before we can get there. You also want to make sure your pick is very rigid while you're doing these 16th notes. Almost comically make your arm go like this, like very robotic, just like this. That's how you're going to achieve the proper choppiness with these 16th notes. They have to be perfectly even the entire way through, so just remember that. Now, on top of all of this, we have a really cool synthesizer part played by Derek Sherinian, but it's almost as if he's playing a guitar part. And here is the part. It's a repetitive series of 3 notes, E, D, and E. So it's a low octave root, a flat 7th above, and a high octave root. In total, like this. The nature of having a 3-note pattern on a 16th note pattern naturally offsets when it starts over. For example, the first sequence starts on beat 1, while the second starts on the of 1. 1 E and See how that next E in the lower octave starts on the of 1. 1 E and And then that continues on. The next one's going to land on the and of 2. Right? So that's kind of a cool thing to offset each note as it moves along. With this pattern continuing, we also hit the E of 3 as well. It's basically every 16th note syncopation that exists. Let's listen one more time with the guitar. So since we already know the guitar chords to be E5, G6, A5, and C, we now have enough information to analyze what John Mayung is doing in the bass line. It's a simplistic 16th note pattern, but some cool inversions are created here. Take a listen. We have E going down a step to D, down a half step down to C sharp, then down another half step to C natural. If we take the guitar chords into account, this gives us an E5 over an E, which is root position, a G6 over a D, so second inversion G chord since the bass line drops down a step, an A5 over C sharp, which makes a first inversion A major chord, with a nice half step resolve to a root position C. Let's hear both the guitar and bass on the first half. E5 over E, G6 over D, A over C sharp, and C over C. The second half gives us the same guitar chords, but the bass does something a little bit different. Check it out, we have E going to G, to A, to C. Well, this is a much simpler analysis than I was anticipating, since every single chord is now in root position. We have E5 over E, G6 over G, A over A, and C over C, or a 1, flat 3, 4, and flat 6 progression. No crazy inversions the second time, which really helps to relieve any tension we might have felt the first time around. Thank you, John Mayung. Before getting to verse 2, we have this little transitional riff that mimics the second half of verse 1. Remember this? That, in addition to a drum fill coming out of that, is all we need. Just 2 bars of very, very fast transition, just repeating a part that was not really all that significant to begin with, but because of Stream Theater, we have to make everything significant here. Verse 2 is half the length of verse 1, but the guitar opts to use a bit of a mishmash approach when it comes to its own arrangement. It takes the first half of the first verse and mashes it with the final half of the first verse. Check this out. Just like that. Same White Zombie riff. Thunderkiss number 749. And then instead of repeating all of that again, we come back into those harmonics, do another chug, we come right in. Don't even wait. Alright, so just make sure you get all of that down, and the second verse is going to be nothing guitar side. Chorus 2 is exactly the same as chorus 1, except this time at the very end we have this incredibly aggressive synth line, which I'm going to pipe in right here. Damn. That's some crazy stuff, Derek Sherinian. What kind of Wheaties were you eating that whole time? 1997, they had all those Wheaties. They must have had hyper Wheaties during that time. Anyway, moving beyond that, we hit the reintro, which is also 4 times through instead of 2. Okay, so we're doubling the length of the reintroduction. 4 more Burning My Soul hooks, right? Burning my soul. Burning my soul. Burning my soul, right? 4 times through. And then we are greeted with this one-time use little transitional riff here. And it's just a very syncopated, single string line on the low E string like this. Alright, let me play that again. It was very short-lived. It's literally only a measure, right? 1 E and a E, a 3 and 4 E and. Alright, one more time just for posterity's sake. 1 E and a E, a 3 and 4 E and. The next section is the keyboard solo, which I'm going to split into 2 distinct sections. The first of which having the main riff being played on the guitar, so that's no different. But there is a much more stripped down and bare bones drum groove going on underneath. Here's the previous time through. And here's the current groove under the keyboard solo. Notice how there's no double bass, just a hard-hitting, caveman-style groove, which leads on the crash, with the bass drum on 1 and 3, and the snare on 2 and 4. Just another example of Mike Portnoy's ability to inject fun into the scenario. And the other difference with this rhythm section is in the guitar part as well. It's only at the very ending. So we basically play through the riff as normal. So that ending right there just comes in on the final part. Just one measure basically. So we have a G coming in like this, to the E, all those perfect 4th intervals just like before. Never hitting the low E string, strangely enough, until now. Look. So we hit a little 16th note palm mute on the low E right there. And then this nice little thing, which is basically going from D5 muted, E5 muted, to F. Alright, so that's flat 7, root, flat 2. Bringing that Phrygian in even harder than it was before. Watch. Phrygian. Now Dream Theater has always been masterful at adding in elements like this. Tiny little variations that make the song more interesting, but also makes the song more complex and more difficult to remember. As we know, Dream Theater songs are very difficult to remember. It's burning my soul just thinking about it. That's not funny, it's just the name of the song. It's not even a joke. It's literally what we're doing here. We're burning our souls, and honestly, it's not fun. It's killing me. It's destroying my entire life. So let's get into the second half of the keyboard solo, which has more of the same, but entirely different. My soul is officially burnt to a crisp. Alright, so let's look at these notes and rhythms measure by measure. Starting with this first measure of 3. And that's all it is. 1 E and E, a 3 and. So it's an incomplete version of the transition that we just heard. 1 E and E, a 3 and. Alright? Which then moves into this measure of 7/8. That's right. So we have a slow 3, and then this is going to be counted like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? Okay, try and count that out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and. Alright, coming right up to the next note. So far we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Boom! Into another measure of 3 going like this on the note A. And then we have a measure of 4 cutting across 2 different notes, C and to B, coming down an E minor pentatonic lick. So far we have E on the measure of 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so that can be kind of tricky if you don't really wrap your head around the different timings of this section. We have a measure of 3, 7, 8, 3, and 4, 4. Now that 7, 8 can be also counted as an incomplete measure of 4 or a slightly longer measure of 3, 4. Now let's go on to the second half, which kind of progresses it a little more, but not much changes. Really just the final ending changes, okay? So check this out. Ready? Alright, so that final lick just ends differently. We skip the B entirely that we hit the first time, and we completely replace it with an E minor blues lick like this. Alright, you want to make sure you're coming down E, D, B, B flat, then as soon as you get down there you're going to do a hammer pull to the flat third going into the root. So, real slow again, ready? And the other cool thing about this is that these chords, or these single notes, actually go along with the chords of the chorus section. Remember, we had E to G, A to C. Well, look what's happening here. E, G, A, C. And then with just a unique ending added to, well, the ending to make it a little bit different. But of course we know Dream Theater has to do that. So with that in mind, let's play this entire section and count it out slowly. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Beyond the keyboard solo, we reach yet another transitional bit, but this serves as sort of a breakdown to literally break us down from the keyboard solo. And it's just a single note chug with the same exact time changes that we just saw. And it goes just like this. Alright, so basically we're hitting the exact same time changes. It's very, very simple. And that's basically all you get. Okay, so 3, 4, 7, 8, 3, 4, 4, 4, and then into the next part. Now there's more to this section, but we'll get there. Let's just focus on the first half of this third verse. Power chords this time around. Alright, so a lot of similar elements that we're used to hearing from these verse parts, but with this new chugging pattern. Also, different time changes. It's just 3, 4, 4, 4, 3, 4, 4, 4. No 7, 8 measure here. That's the basic concept right there. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just adding a second double chug, 16th note chug on that beat 4. Alright, so da 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 da. Okay, so we got a double at the end, a single at the beginning. You got a single for the 3-4 and a double on the 4-4. All right, so don't mess around with this. You got to play it exactly how it is. Okay. Then of course at the ending we hit the B flat to the G flat once again, and that's on the final 4 measure, which happens on the final ending. which would be the fourth ending technically. All right, so once again, let's just kind of play it at full speed. Here we go, ready? Right into the second half. And the second half of verse 3 sees a little bit of difference in the guitar once again, so more variation. This time doing the reverse. Usually we see the single notes going to the power chords. Now we're seeing the power chords devolve to the single notes, all right? But this time a little more complex. The time changes remain exactly the same, but the application of these time changes is completely different. We have to wrap our heads around this completely unique guitar part. And here is the first half of the second half. I know I keep breaking this up into halves. Really, this is 3/4 of the part, but hey, cut me some slack here. I'm trying to teach you something, all right? So we're going like this. This highly syncopated single note thing, kind of continuing along with the same feel, but more notes. You almost want to completely have your pick go the entire time. Watch this. So you see how all that has to happen exactly with the part, because the drums are going along with that rhythm. All the accents are happening on those, well, accents on the A string. So we have to make sure we're really in sync with that and generally in tune. So check this out, ready? So it's basically you're hitting on the ands, all right? So all the upbeats, 1, 2, 3, and 2, 3, and, right? So this is a little less in the 16th note range and more in the range of the 8th note, but still very crucial that you get that rhythm down. Ready? Watch again, I'll play it super slow. Basically, that final part of the longer measure, the measure of 4, has a palm muted low E going twice, and then the hammer on. So that counts as the entire 16th note bit on that beat. Alright, just like that. Forienda. So, forienda. You see that? So once again from the beginning, I'll try and outline this as best as I can. 1, 2, bam, forienda. So that forienda, very crucial, and the and of 3, also very crucial because, let's face it, both measures have it, the 3/4 and the 4/4. The final section of this final verse sees the same chords that we saw in the earlier verses, the drop down from E, D, C, B, G flat, but with the time changes it makes it seem a lot different, and there is something very different that happens at the end. So I'll go bit by bit. I'm going to play the first measure slow. Ready? That's exactly the same as what we saw before. 1, 2, 3, and. Okay? Then we got to hit right on the note D for the measure of 4/4. Alright, so we're playing the same rhythm, but we're starting on the note D as to outline the chord change as it happens, okay? And the entire band does this as well. So here's the first 2 measures. Ready? Alright, you see that rhythm? Same exact stuff, all the same accents and everything. Now on the next measure of 3, we just hit this really crunchy C power chord. Alright, so ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, right on the chord. And that's where everything shifts down as well. Remember, we skip the C sharp, go right for the C, okay? So here are those measures. And then right into B flat following that. notice that's a measure of 2, but it's actually not. It's the first half of this 4/4 measure, and we have to do this elongated version of the extremely, catastrophic B flat that we saw from before. Okay, so the Metropolis style tritone part is coming back with a vengeance, and instead of playing it for just 1 beat, we play it for 2 full beats. I can't believe we're gonna have to do something so technical for so long. 2 full beats? Geez, we don't have enough time in the world for this. But basically, we do the same sort of deal like this. That takes up the first beat, and then the final part is all palm muted like this. Alright, so you gotta make sure you're really tight with that. It's just chromatic coming from C sharp. Going from C sharp down to B flat. So we're still landing a tritone away from where we're gonna go, which is E. So here it is at full speed. Once again. Slower. Even slower. Slower for the people that still didn't get that. I kind of started at the same speed, but I did gradually slow down. A retardando, so to speak. Now let's play it at full speed. Let's play it faster. Let's play it faster. Let's play it even faster. I'm not going to play it any faster for you because I'm going to make myself look like a fool if I haven't already. Simply put, an awesome way to elongate something that should be longer. I feel like this B flat tritone bit doesn't get enough time in the sun, even with this elongated version. So this kind of gives it a bit more show time, gives it a bit more significance, and obviously it can't help but be heard within the song. It does have its importance, but I just think it should last a little bit longer. But lo and behold, it's a Dream Theater song, and we have to go with what the Dream Theater boys want us to do. Let's play and count this out one more time before we move on. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, you see all those time changes, incredibly difficult to count and play at the same time, so you really have to feel out how long each of these sections go, okay? Now it's time to insert James Labrie appreciation time with my absolute favorite line that he sings, possibly in all of Dream Theater's entire history. I absolutely love this. Just take a listen to it.
So I hurt your feelings, well I'm really sorry, but I don't give a shit, no!
I think he's effectively saying that he doesn't give a shit, no, 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 no. Right beyond that fast bit, an excellent verse sung by James Labrie, we hit the final chorus of the song, which is exactly the same, which then goes to the final re-intro of the song, which is now going to be called the outro. Now, last re-intro we had was 4 times through. This one is 6 times through. So basically, we're just adding 2 each time we move. First one was 2 times through, the second one was 4 times through, this one is going to be 6 times all the way through. Which honestly is a very 90s thing to do. It's a very Nirvana thing to do, actually. If you listen to some of their big hits, Lithium, they play through the chorus 3 times instead of 2. It's an odd number. The next one after that is 6 times. Smells Like Teen Spirit, 6 times through that chorus section, right? To just pound it into your head. Just that extra little bit. That's exactly what's happening here. We're going basically a third longer than we normally would, which is completely asinine and strange, but very 90s of them to do, and this is what I believe to be a very 90s album, and there's nothing you can do about it. But there are a couple of elements here for these last 2 reintros that do add to the entire composition, so we're going to go over that real fast. And the 2 culprits here are Derek Sherinian and Mike Portnoy. Let's listen to Portnoy's drums change for the last 2 times through. More crashes and slightly more intensity. Oh, and don't forget these last 2 snare hits that take us to the end. Just another of many instances where Portnoy turns up the fun dial. Another member that raises the fun dial during this is Derek Sherinian on the keys. Check this out. Derek Sherinian is once again a guitarist trapped in a keyboardist's body. He plays the riff with the tone and articulation of a guitarist. Let's get it one more time with the guitar to see how they blend. And these two parts blend absolutely perfectly. And that brings us to the end of this video, everybody. Derek Sherinian and John Petruccio playing the two guitar players of Dream Theater. That's right. Derek Sherinian playing guitar on the keyboard as a guitarist, trapped in a keyboardist's body. And John Petruccio playing the regular guitar here. Now, everybody, thank you so much for coming along this journey. I really appreciate all the viewership, all the subscribers, all the likes and comments and everything. It's really great. Anybody who decides to donate to the channel and support financially, that's also great. If you'd like to further support the channel, go to www.subscribestar.com/RomanOva Music. You can pledge any money, any amount of money you want per month. I have different tiers set up. So if you want to get extended cuts of these analysis videos, you have to do the $5 option. If you want to get access to my exclusive RomanOva Guitar Gym series, basically all sorts of videos about theory, technique, blah, blah, blah. And I do it on a bi-weekly basis, so it's, you pay 20 bucks and you get basically 2 to 3 exclusive videos every single month just for you. Okay? Now that's nothing to scoff at, all right? That's quite a bit, that you're getting there, You can also visit my website. I do give and offer private lessons as well for anybody that's interested. You can just get in contact with me by hitting the big red button right in the middle of the screen when you go onto the website. RomanOvamusic.com. If not, just simply like the video, comment on things, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed already. Man, you're going to love this stuff. If you enjoyed this, made it through this entire thing, there's even more coming, and there's way more that I've done in the past as well. So check all of that out, and make sure you check out some of my other videos as well. I do some more basic fundamentals and primers, and I have some just quick musings of mine that I just get out onto the camera and into the ether here. So, can't really ask for more. I can't ask for more either, out of the audience here. You've been a great audience. Thank you so much, and I will see you on the next one, which I hope you know what it is, because it's a very special one on this album, okay? And with that said, see you later, everybody. Have a good night, or a good day, or a good year, a good century, a good millennium. Let's make the next 1,000 years perfect. See you later.